Welcome to Storyboard Introduction. Here's our first assignment. It's going to be very, very simple, or I'm using a very simple children's show to analyze, break down, and understand storyboarding and visually communicating and storytelling and cinematics, all these great things. So Peep in the Big Wide World is our first sample that we're going to analyze. And we have three main characters. I'm using these because they're very basic shapes, and as you'll know in design class, we are building from very simple shapes, and we'll want to keep things relatively simple as we learn how to communicate these ideas. This show is created by an old professor of mine when I was back in college, Kai Pindel, originally from Denmark, and went to England, then came to Canada and worked for the National Film Board, where he created Peep and the Great Big World, and also other great films. In the top left here is What on Earth? That was an Oscar nominated animated film done at the Film Board as well. Kai was a real character. Unfortunately, he just passed away last year at 92, but had a great, wonderful life. Here he is in his home studio and taking a look, and he has plush toys of the Peep characters here. So there's lots of merchandising. The show is very successful, and and this is something that the show won an Emmy Award, and he was in his 80s when that happened. So here's a man with passion, and his life was dedicated to animation. He started out as a comic strip artist back in Copenhagen in Denmark, and was very successful at developing characters and telling visual stories just through limited panels. So he built on that and created a very simple character here for children's show. So here's our main character, Peep. What our first assignment is going to be is learning the characters. So many of these stills that are in this video are going to be posted in the course material. And what I ask you to do is get familiar with the characters, break them down. If you look at Peep here, the nice round ball and the simple legs, and also the proportions of the eyes to the beak and to the plumage on the top of the head, and how that contrasts with the other characters here, Quack, and how he's identified as a waterfowl with the little sailor cap on. So very minimalized but effective, and use of color here. But what I want you to really concentrate on is line and working on these characters, getting familiar, because you are going to be storyboarding with these characters. So I want you to draw them up. There will be a submission folder where I want you to give me a page of your drawings of these characters and keeping them on model as much as possible. Really a whole thing about animation is keeping characters on model, analyzing, breaking them down, getting proportions consistent. When we looked at elements and principles of design, unity and repetition, which we talked about as being continuity, making sure things look the same throughout, and that's very important in animation. We can see those very simple shapes here with here's our three main characters. There's Peep, Quack, and Chirp, and you can see the shadows here, that they're still very identifiable by the shadows alone. So something to keep in mind when we're designing, that shadows, silhouettes of characters are very important to be able to really identify them from that simple outline. Also, we'll take a look at environments, as you're exploring and taking a look at this from the images provided, but also, go online and look it up and check out whatever you can find. Get familiar with the environments and where it is these characters live, because you're going to have to develop a storyboard. That's going to be down the road, but you're going to be doing a storyboard based on these characters and their surroundings, and how to come up with a plot. But you got to be really familiar with the characters. Here's some idea. Again, the environments are as simple as the characters. but they have to be in the right style. Here we have a prop of a marble or an alley. Something that we can develop. We'll explore more, or maybe how we can use a prop to tell stories and create plots. And there's additional characters. We're going to avoid that in this project. But it could be something that you can play with when you get familiar with these characters, is come up with another character. What I found in these episodes, as we see other characters, they get maybe a little bit more complex than the three main ones, but still trying to keep them on model. So a real challenge when working with a whole series and being able to try and figure out how to make that work. Here's some very nice black and white environment studies along with the characters. These are great to analyze and take a look at the nice line quality and the simplicity of the characters, as well as the layout and how we got foreground elements and midground elements. And what's interesting, this one image tells us a lot about our characters. We can see that Quack is in the water, and the other two are walking across the log up top. But we can see Peep is actually walking, and Chirp is hopping. So we'll see that in the animation, but even a still image should get across motion and action that these characters use to get around. Here's another image of a bunch of characters. But this is really kind of a setting where we have the pond where Quack hangs out, as well as the style of the trees and the ground plane and such that's going on. Here's another more of these black and white, which is very nice with the water edge here. These are, more stylistic than what's in the show. These are beautiful. How they treated the clouds and how the silhouette of the trees and bushes in the background, and the use of black and white, seeing the shadow on the trees. And we talk about texture. There's the bark on that tree looking very nice and really selling that that is a tree, and the texture on the trunk. There's an important one. You'll see in episodes that Peep lives in this tin can, and kind of a little bit on a hill. So checking that out and getting familiar, so we'll be able to tell a story using it. Okay, so we're back at the beginning. So the challenge is drawing Peep and understanding the whole Peep and the big wide world.